Hi, it's the Chappiness guy. Welcome to today's episode of Vestibular Talks. Today's special guest is Suni. Suni is here with us today to raise awareness about multiple sclerosis, to let us know what an invisible illness looks like, and to fight the stigma that people out in the public. Right, Suni, we're live. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank
Oh,
you.
hold, hold on. We're gonna. Oh, there you go. I got you back. You froze for a second.
Great luck right when we start.
Right at the start, yes. How's your day going today?
It's going great. Just staying busy, trying to keep up with everything. What about you?
It's good. It's good. I'm very excited and very happy that you've taken the time to chat with us in Vestibular Talks. So I really appreciate you. Thank you for that.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
All right. So well, let's dig into it. Can you tell us a little about yourself and how your journey began?
Absolutely. So I have multiple sclerosis. This was something that prior to being diagnosed, my doctors, they weren't the same team that I had been going to for a long time. I had other doctors. I had a long journey to my diagnosis, but the ones who are with me now and working on, treating me, they believe I've been struggling with MS for about 8.5 years. When I was diagnosed, they thought it was 7 years prior,
Okay.
just based on what showed up in my scans and my symptoms, and as far as I could remember back, just to the things that I had described that had been happening to me. And it's funny because I hear a lot of people have the same issue. They're struggling for years and years. They don't have answers. There's this great period of uncertainty,
Yes.
and it's hard to diagnose MS. It kind of, it's unknown. A lot of the symptoms, a lot of the struggles are similar to other diseases or other disorders.
Yes.
So oftentimes people who are struggling with MS do not get a diagnosis for a very long time. That's what happened to me. And so the first part of my story with MS really started with me being in college and the death of my father. Something that's very common with multiple sclerosis is they say that a period of grief or trauma
A stress
or
episode.
stress-inducing episode, something, that sends our system into a shock, can oftentimes trigger our first symptoms, our first attack. We're predisposed, is what, a lot of studies
Yes.
say, we're predisposed to have it. Maybe it gets triggered and maybe it doesn't. Some of us are more lucky than others. And for me, I really do believe that with the timing of it, the death of my dad was what caused that for me.
The beginning of it, yeah.
Yes. And so dealing with that, I was out of my normal routine. It was unexpected. It was a shock. I was in school, and, it was just something that I didn't even know how to prepare to deal with. I had never lost anyone before. And so everything that I was going through felt like, well, this is just what happens when, you lose someone. You feel these things and your body goes into shock. And so I really justified all of these, things that didn't feel normal to me just as grief and stress. That was what was being, presented to me as the reason for some of the symptoms I was suffering from.
Mhm.
He passed away in 2011 in December, and then it was April, when I had my first big attack, when I
Okay.
was at a music festival and my favorite band was playing. I was having a good time, and all of a sudden I just felt this pain in my eye, and
Okay.
my vision started getting blurrier, and by the minute it was as if it was closing in. It was like a tunnel, and it was blurry. It was like a halo, and it hurt, and it felt like there was this tremendous pressure. And so I will be quite honest, I was in college. I was drinking a little bit because I was with friends at a music country concert, and we were being safe, but I was like, this could just be dehydration. I'm in Arizona. I'm in the desert. I can drink some water. I'll be fine. The next morning, it was so bad that, and I couldn't see when I woke up out of that eye, that I told my roommate, I need to go to the hospital. Something's wrong. I can't see. I was terrified. So they admitted me to the hospital. And from what they could tell, you know, I wasn't too dehydrated. They said, yeah, everyone can use a little more water, but there's probably something else going on. So from there, I was in the hospital for several days. It was very scary. A lot of my family flew out to be with me because I was out of state. And they started doing tests on me, blood work. I had a spinal tap, which I don't know if you've had one or not, but they're not very pleasant.
I read about them, and they can also be I don't want to say dangerous, but they can create issues if they are not done properly, because such a sensitive test. So yes.
So it's all very scary, especially for a 20-year-old, but for anybody, for anyone who's uncertain, who feels vulnerable because they can't see. You know, I was an adult, but I was so afraid. And I remember my mother being in the room, and you know, they're asking her these questions as if I'm not there, and she's looking to me to say, you know, kind of concerned and just, are you okay with this? And you know, this is something we should do. It's dangerous, but we should do it because we need to figure out what's wrong. This is not right. You should be able to see. And so we went ahead with a spinal tap. They came back with inconclusive test results. And from there, they just said, we'll keep an eye on you. It should go away eventually, or hopefully your vision will come back. So I was not prescribed anything other than just some mild painkillers for if I had headaches, which I did, and that was an experience in and of itself. But I really had no answer, and it just seemed to me that this was a fluke. This was just, oh, you know, maybe I was just not drinking enough water and I shouldn't had that many beers. Maybe I was, you know, this was just a one-time thing and now it's over. But it took several months for my vision to really ever fully come back. Yes, and I was always afraid that it was going to happen again, or to the other eye, and not knowing what it could be. It was definitely tough. So that was my first real attack, which they diagnosed as optic neuritis, which we now know, you know, almost 10 years later, that optic neuritis is a very common first symptom of multiple sclerosis.
Okay.
Multiple sclerosis was not even brought up in the hospital, except for one time to say, no, she doesn't have it, but we should keep an eye on her. And so for me, I didn't look into it. I didn't know what it was. I very vaguely remember even hearing MS, aside from I didn't have it. So it was out of my mind. And then from there, throughout the rest of my college career, and, you know, struggling to put myself through school and graduating on time after losing my dad, I was under a tremendous amount of stress. And, you know, a few months later, I had another attack. I was working at a bar, and I was serving, you know, a margarita to a patron, and I was so dizzy, I couldn't see, and my body felt like it was caving in on itself, and I slumped over onto this poor woman who was just enjoying her meal and her drinks, and I couldn't lift my body off of her. I couldn't see straight. I didn't know where I was.
Okay. That's even more scary than the first sign of symptoms. Yeah,
and so I'm thinking, and I knew I wasn't drinking, I was sure, because I was at work. I was like, hey, I can't vomit on that this time, like something's not right.
Something is happening.
And so I just kept thinking to myself, you know, my manager came and helped me up, and he was like, are you okay? Did you get enough sleep last night? Go take a break. And it was so bad that I had to have my poor roommate come again, pick me up from work, and I was sick. I was sick outside the car. I had to be helped out. I couldn't walk. I couldn't lift my head. They got me home, and I just couldn't even move myself to get in or out of the bed. And I said, we have to call 911. I have to go to the hospital. Like, I can't even see to make it to the bathroom to be sick. So again, the ambulance, you know, comes to get me, and I'm again in the hospital saying, hey, something is very wrong. I'm in the emergency room this time. I told them that I had been previously, and they just again said, you know, people have vertigo. This is probably vertigo. You know, it's separate things. It has nothing to do with your vision. It's an inner ear infection or a disorder. So, you know, we're going to have you go see a specialist for vertigo. they diagnosed me with vertigo. But my vertigo never went away. It was not as bad as it was in that attack, but I still, to this day, if I turn too quickly or if I move in a way that my body's not ready for, I feel nauseous, I feel dizzy, I feel disoriented. And
I feel your pain. As you know, I'm diagnosed with vestibular migraines, and some of the symptoms can kind of like interlap with MS symptoms. They are very similar. So the whole dizziness and vertigo, I don't wish that upon anyone. It's such a debilitating symptom, and everything else that you've been describing. It's like for someone so young as you are, and to think or to have doctors telling you, no, you're healthy, there is nothing really wrong going on, but you know your body better than anybody else, so you know that something is not quite right, especially when you're showing these kind of symptoms like problems with your vision, the dizziness, falling onto someone and being able to move, to have control over your body movements. Like this is so scary, and for someone at such a young age, like I don't know how you dealt with it.
um, I didn't. I kind of just passed over it. That's how it. That's the only way I can describe it. Is I just kept telling myself, I'm healthy, I'm normal, I'm young. People say, you're too young to have a disease. You're too this, you're too that. And so much of what's built around the culture of before we're diagnosed is telling people you're fine, it's okay. Everybody has these things happen to them. Everyone feels dizzy sometimes. And a lot of that, even though it's well-intentioned, can prevent us from having the confidence to say, no, I know what's going on with me. I know something's not right. I know that it's not okay that I feel this way. And, other people might be okay with it, but I'm not okay with it. And it took me so long to even have the strength or the courage to say that. When you're a young woman and you're having doctors who have been doing their jobs for longer than you've been alive telling you you're okay, you're fine, don't be dramatic, which is my least favorite saying in the entire world. You start to think, okay, I'm just not going to share with anyone anymore. And that's what I did. I went inside of myself and I said, I know something's not right, but no one else believes me, so I'm just going to keep going forward. That's the only thing you can do. And if something happens again, I'll tackle it when I get there.
It's so unfortunate that this happens like that, because number one, you don't feel acknowledged. And number two, the fact that these doctors, as you say, that they know better, they are telling you, no, you're fine, you're okay, tough it up. Everybody feels like this every now and then. It makes you double guess yourself, because now you feel guilt inside of you as like, am I over exaggerating? Am I being dramatic? Or you start thinking, am I going crazy? Like, am I exaggerating the symptoms worse than they actually are? So it's so I don't know. Like I have no word to describe it. The fact that they make you feel so little, so like they belittle you, and you're trusting them because you're afraid, you're vulnerable, you're in such a sensible spot that you're trusting them to tell you, hey, we're gonna help you, but they kind of like just brush it off their shoulders and like, no, just go home and sleep it off and you'll be fine. Like I'm sorry you went through that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry that anybody goes through it. And something too, that came to mind when you were just saying that is there is a small part of all of us, even after our diagnosis, that, a lot of us think, well, the reason why I believed a lot of that stuff is because I wanted to believe that I would be okay. I wanted to trust that this wasn't happening to me and it wasn't the end or the start of something terrible. People have all these preconceived notions. And so, yes, everything that you just said absolutely plays a factor. And then there's that tiny part of us, that part that is what opens the door to let in all of those thoughts, which is, yeah, I want to trust them because I want to believe what they're telling me, because what they're thinking is much better than what I'm thinking. Because what I'm thinking is I'm going to have a lifetime battle. And that's what's ended up happening. So after that, it was a few more attacks, a lot more vertigo, a few more things. And then when I got out of college, I immediately started working in finance. And I joined a firm, a big firm, and it was rigorous and it was intense work. And there was a lot of, testing, and there was a lot of competition. I was on the sales side for investments, and, you put in the extra hours, and you don't sleep very often if you want to get ahead, especially if you're someone like me who is, mixed race, a young woman in a financial industry, you have to put in more hours. You have to put in more time. And that's how I felt. So I was stressing myself out, maybe unnecessarily, but I think it was necessary. But it was just a place that drove a lot of nerves and anxiety in me. And through that period of time in my life, I started to feel weakness in my legs, numbness, and I kept going to my doctor saying, something is wrong. Okay, so here's all this stuff that happened to me in college. I found a woman who I connected with, and I really trusted her, and she was my primary care physician.
Okay.
And I kept going to her and saying, look, you know the job that I have. You know that I'm under a lot of stress. Is what's going on with me? I can't feel, my fingers feel like there's electric shocks shooting to the tips of my fingers, and occasionally I can't feel, my last 3 fingers on both sides of my hand, and I feel those electric shocks through my toes and my feet. And whether she had the best intentions or not, she said, well, you wear heels every day to work. You wear high heels. Don't do that. That hurts your feet. It's bad for your spine. And I said, well, okay, sure, I'll stop wearing high heels to work. So I did, and nothing changed. And then she said, well, you're a little overweight, so try to lose some weight. That will probably help you.
Harsh.
Yeah. So, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I gained some weight in college. Like, it's good. It's okay. Yes, I enjoyed myself. So I'll try to live a healthier lifestyle. And I did. I lost weight. And she said, okay, well, your breasts are too big for your body. You're not a very tall person. You've got big breasts. You should get your breasts reduced. So I did.
Hold on, time out. Is this a doctor or is this like the worst critic in the planet? Like, how is she just, not only you're going through these symptoms, but she seems to be picking at you at every possible chance she gets. Like, what kind of person is this? Like that, I'm sorry, like that. This just you're a warrior. Like this woman was mean to you. Like that's not fair. Why is she acting like that to you? I mean, I know you said it was well intended, but
it felt
holy
like
crap.
at the time, but that's because I wasn't seeing clearly, And
Yeah.
I was she made me feel as though at least she was listening to me, where she was at least acknowledging, okay, I believe you that your fingers are numb. Here is why. Whereas before it was, well, it's probably just sadness. Your dad died. You'll be fine. It's probably just depression. Oh, you probably drank too much. So at least with this lady, I felt at the time, I do not feel this way now, to be clear. I felt, well, she's trying. She's trying to help me. No one else has been able to tell me what's going on. Okay, wearing high heels makes sense. Yeah, I'm not comfortable in heels. I don't know a woman that chooses to wear heels all the time. Now that we're all working from home, I challenge you to find one woman on the face of the earth that walks around her home in heels when she doesn't have to. No. If you find them, send them my way. I'd love to know the secret. However, I believed her. I was thinking, okay, cool. So I'm not going to wear high heels to work and my problems will be solved. And then I went back to her saying, okay, I am extremely tired. I am extremely, the tiredness that I feel, all these symptoms seem like they're happening at the same time now. So it's not just numbness. It's like a type of tiredness that feels almost depressing how tired you are. And I wasn't sad at the time. There was nothing I could pinpoint that would, make me feel like, like everyone always says, depression can come from all these different things, but I couldn't think of a single thing that I felt depressed about. I could acknowledge that there was grief from my father's loss and the turmoil in my family, but I didn't believe that I was depressed. And so when that came up and when I told her that my tiredness made me so tired that I couldn't get out of bed, that I couldn't do the things that I needed to do, that I knew I had to do that day, and I just physically, not mentally, but physically could not move my body. She just said, well, we'll put you on medication. We'll put you on Adderall because that'll help you have more energy and more focus. So I had a breast reduction. I went on Adderall. Nothing helped. I still had numbness. Never once did she scan me. Never once did she say, oh, this could be something more. Let's look at your brain. Let's look at
the system, yes.
Right. There are so many. And by that time, MS is still very uncharted now. There's still so much we don't know. But by that time, I think it was reasonable to say, let's scan you, let's scan your spine. Instead, she sent me to a chiropractor who I went to for years and years and years because she said, well, then you just have nerve damage. Everybody has nerve damage at one point in their life. You know, my son plays sports and he has numbness in his legs because, you know, he had an injury from high school. And so it was just all these things that made me feel like all these separate symptoms were normal. But when you put them all together, it's not normal.
Yes.
So sure, I can say that one thing that happens to me with my disease is similar to someone else's, but what about everything together? Why are we not looking at the whole picture? So, you know, after that, I stopped going to her. I wised up. I got a little bit more confidence and I started living my life. I met my husband who, you know, at the time we were dating for a while, we were engaged. He was aware of my symptoms and always encouraged me to go to doctors. And I said, no, I don't want to go to doctors anymore because I feel terrible when I do. They tell me I'm overweight. They tell me my breasts are too big and they don't believe me or they don't help me. And I don't want to be on medication that makes me feel like I can't live my life without depending on something when I know it's not the answer or it can't be the only answer. So eventually this fast forwards to my actual diagnosis. So all of that was over 7 years, you know, and so I was now working for a different financial firm. I was in New York on a business trip by myself in my hotel room. So I was away from my husband and it was a long day. And I remember putting on the TV just while I was getting ready for bed, and on the news, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the actress Selma Blair, who's now very big in MS because she came out about having MS. But her story was being aired on the news and she was describing all of her symptoms, and she was finally sharing with the world that she had been struggling with MS for a while and she was finally diagnosed and ready to talk about it. I listened to her words that evening and it moved me to tears because it felt like for the first time someone was linking everything that I had gone through into one and calling it something. And I remember calling my husband and I was shaking, and he wasn't my husband then. We were actually 2 weeks away from our wedding, but I remember calling him and shaking and saying, I have MS. Oh, you know, pardon me. We were actually married. This was a year later. We had been married for a year. He was my husband. Okay. So I told him, honey, I have MS. I'm sure of it. I'm positive. I am going to get a diagnosis. And, you know, as best as he could, he said, if that's how you feel, then I support whatever you want. I want to hope that that's not true. So it wasn't dismissing what I was feeling, which I'm thankful for, but it was also wanting to stay positive. And I look back at his response that night, and I'm so thankful he didn't say, no, you don't have it. No, don't worry, you know? So when I got back, I made an appointment with the first neurologist who could take me, the first one, and it was hard. People are so busy. I live in LA. The first person, it didn't matter to me what their reviews were, you know, if they were going to be compatible with me, because I knew I wanted one thing, and that was get me in and get me scanned. I want to know what's going on inside my body. And so I made the appointment. He ended up being, you know, very nice, very kind, ordered my scans immediately, but I just didn't feel that connection with him. I knew he wasn't the doctor for me, but he did give me the orders to get my scans, and I got scanned, and it came back that I had 7 lesions. I had 3 in my brain, 4 in my spine, and where they were located were the answers to everything that I had been going through for the past 7 years.
Wow, that it's okay. Your journey gets me kind of emotional because number one, like all the struggles and the frustration to try to prove yourself, to say, hey, acknowledge me, I'm living this, stop dismissing me. So like that is just so horrible that it happened to you. But the fact that finally someone listened to you and gave you the test that you needed to get the diagnosis. And I can imagine you probably felt a little bit of you felt relieved that, okay, finally have a diagnosis, but probably most of you felt extremely scared because the unknowns that come with MS and already having 7 lesions already in your spine and in your brain. Most people at a young age like you are, if they have lesions, it's either in the spine or in the brain, rarely in both places. So for you to have both, tell me, how do you cope? Like how What was your reaction?
I was pissed.
Huh?
I was not scared in the moment. I just saw red. And I'm going to be honest, it's not a pretty quality to have. It's not a lovely thing to say, but I was really, really angry. He did not give me my official diagnosis. He said, look, I think you have it. I'm going to give you your scans. And so I went and got my scan. So it wasn't his fault. I didn't want him to give me the diagnosis. I wanted him to scan me so I could take those scans to a doctor that couldn't see me till later, but I knew she was going to be the one who I would want to pursue treatment if I got the answers I was looking for. So when I did finally get those scans back and I saw the amount of lesions, where they were placed, the first thing I wanted to do was just knock on that previous doctor's door, that woman who I had been seeing for almost 7 years, the one who knew me, who saw me cry in her office, who told me I was overweight, who told me to go get a surgery that I had to pay for out of pocket, who just told me all of these things. I wanted to tell her, it's because of you that I did not feel that I was confident enough to go pursue this diagnosis. I asked for this. I went to him and I said, I have MS, you need to scan me. I didn't say, hey doc, something's wrong, can you help me? I said, I know I have multiple sclerosis. And he didn't say, you don't know that, you don't know, you're dramatic. No, he just said, well, if that's what you think, let's give you your scans. That should have been her response 7 years ago.
And that's what's so upsetting. That I mean, I know doctors are no God, so they don't know everything. They are only human. They are trying to guess. But the amount of times you went there over and over again, showing all these different symptoms that have to do a lot with the nervous system. How did she miss that? Like, how did she miss that? And the fact that I don't want to be harsh towards her because I don't know the lady, but it's medical neglect, and she should have been held liable for it because she's playing with your life. This is not something that is like, oh yeah, you have a cold and yeah, you'll get better. This is something that will affect you for the rest of your life. And thankfully, you look as you look right now. You look amazing. You look sophisticated. You look strong. You look like, I think you'll take over the world if you wanted to. And the fact that you are so strong to be able to like battle this right now, rather than saying to yourself, you know what, my life is over. I have 7 lesions in my spine and in my brain. I know what a mess does to people at an advanced state. It's not pretty and it's extremely scary. I dated a lady many years ago when I wasn't married. One of her family members suffered from MS, and I went with her to visit her once at the hospital. And this poor lady, she was maybe in her 40s, probably 45, couldn't walk, couldn't fend for herself, stuck to a bed, trembling. So I know, and you know, the reality of this condition. Like, this is no joke. So for this doctor to have let it pass so many years without believing in you, without pushing further, like, what if this could have been prevented? And again, I don't want to be harsh against her, but what if you could have done something to treat it prior to getting? I'm sorry, I'm just getting, like, I'm ranting because I'm heated right now. Like, I'm getting so emotional. So I should keep my cool, but I just believe it's not fair. Like, it is not fair.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're not keeping your cool, because that's what we need to see when we tell people these things about us. And you know this, as an autoimmune disease warrior, our symptoms are not always visible. So the only way people know is by the way we articulate them to other people so that they understand the journey we're on and how that feels. So it's comforting to me, and it's also a huge compliment, and I thank you that you do feel the way you do right now hearing my story, because for so long people didn't. And I learned how to better speak up for myself, so I'm probably better at talking about it now than I was years ago, but it shouldn't have taken this long, and people shouldn't gloss over how terrifying the circumstances that we're going through really are for us, and just think that because they can't see it, or because we're not telling them immediately, that they know the full extent of what we go through. A lot of my close friends are spared from it too, because I don't want to tell people unless it's something that I feel comfortable talking about. And still to this day, you know, there are things that I keep private. There's there's, symptoms or relapses or things that are embarrassing that happen to us due to, symptoms that we're experiencing, things that make us feel, like less dignified because we're so embarrassed of some of the things that happen, tripping, falling, having problems with your bladder, just things like that. I don't owe it to anybody to tell anyone anything. So, people only know as much as we're willing to tell them, but we also, when we do tell them, it does reassure us to hear that they get it. And to me, and aside from you having, your own struggles, I do feel like you understand me. And it's not just relating back to, what you have. I feel like you're hearing me, hearing my symptoms, and that you are on my journey with me. And so for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, thank you for trusting me enough to open up to share your journey, because you're right. Like it's not easy. It's a very personal journey. It's very you. A lot of people can see you and they say, "Oh, but she looks fine." You might look fine to the outside, but they don't know the internal hell that you might be living inside, because a lot of times, even with symptoms, you still have to show up to work. Even with symptoms, you still have to be a wife. You still have to see your friends. You still have to be a family member. So a lot of people don't see this. They see you and they could be seeing you right now. For all I know, you could be having a vertigo attack right now. You could be having dizziness. You could be in pain, but you tough it up because you don't want the world to feel pity for you. You want the world to understand the reality of this, but at the same time, you want to encourage and motivate people that are going through similar conditions to say, "Hey, I can do it." Like I acknowledge myself, and yes, I should appreciate my body and my symptoms, but I am able to live a life as normal as possible as it can be. So before we continue on talking about maybe treatments, how was it for you to, when you finally got a diagnosis, how was it for you to talk about it to your husband, to your family members, and maybe to people at work? Like how did life change once the diagnosis, once you finally had it?
So I went through many stages, right? I think people go through the phases that they need to finally grasp it. You go through shock, you go through anger, you go through grief. And for me, the sadness really kicked in when I told my spouse, when I told my husband. I was diagnosed I pursued my diagnosis 10 months after we were married. I was diagnosed, December 6th, I believe. We were married February 24th of the same year. And I remember just feeling an overwhelming sense of guilt. And I knew that, he was with me no matter what. I knew this didn't change a thing for him, but I could not help but feel like I had doomed him to a life with someone. We didn't even have a full year of marriage without me being diagnosed. And this was something that was not going to go away, at least as we know it now in science. There's no cure. This was a life sentence. He committed to the life sentence of being married to me, which has its own, obviously benefits and downfalls, whatever. But, this was something that, in my mind, I thought, my God, he didn't sign up for this. This is something you should know before you marry someone. This impacts me wanting to have children. This impacts so many different areas of my life that I'm now uncertain about. What if I'm not able to work? What if I'm not, all the questions we ask ourselves. What if I'm going to be in a wheelchair tomorrow? Because that makes sense. No, it doesn't, but it does. You don't know. So I felt guilty. I felt sad. He was my rock in that period. To him, it was just like, well, this doesn't change anything. But it was almost because he was so supportive and so okay with it, and because I had put so much doubt in my mind, I felt the grief of two people because I didn't see that from him. He was all positive all the time. And then I started to get a little angry and thinking, why are you not more upset that I've done this to you? Why are you just okay with this? Because life's going to be terrible from here on out. I am going to wither away. I am going to need you to give me baths and just the worst thoughts, right? You go through this period of just thinking all of the worst things immediately once you're diagnosed. And then you go on and you move on and you realize, okay, it didn't happen today. Okay, it didn't happen the next day. Okay, I'm still living my life. I'm still able to do things. Yes, it's hard. Yes, I'm dealing emotionally with a lot of stuff, but life is moving on. And it took me a while to realize, okay, I can only go off of what I know right now. I can try and prepare for the future and be as ready for it as possible, but I can only do what I can do, right? And so I adopted a more positive attitude, which was more helpful to me. It was better for my husband, and he's remained supportive. Naturally, he's more optimistic than me, just in general. So it really wasn't an issue with him. Telling my family was different. I waited a little bit longer to tell them. I wanted my privacy, and I have a very large family, and so I really only told a couple people. I told my older brother, who was the person who flew out to Arizona when I was first experiencing these symptoms, and he held my hand while I was getting my spinal tap because I was too afraid to go alone. So I told him, and I told my husband, and that was really it for a little while. And I told my mom eventually, but God, telling my mom, I was thinking, I'm doing this to her. I'm her baby. This is going to ruin her life. You feel guilty for telling people because you don't want them to be sad. And it's not that I don't want support. I don't want to hurt her.
You're right. And we often, many of us, because I've seen this with other people as well, we feel guilty because we love them so much that we don't want to become a burden to their life. So we often feel like leave me alone, let me deal with this, even if I have to die alone. And we tend to push them away, not because we don't care about them. We love them and we appreciate everything that they do, but it's because we feel that we don't, you're right, like we feel that we did this to them, so it should be our responsibility to deal with it because we don't want to burden them with it. So you're right, but although we do it, let me tell you, is the wrong thing that we do it. We definitely should be more open and appreciate their love and the need to want to help us and be around us. So we need to not push them away, but welcome them in.
Yes, I completely agree. And life is better when you do. It is difficult at first, but usually letting people in, at least those that love you unconditionally, that believe you, that support you, letting those people in is always better than pushing them away to protect them. That's just something that needs to end. They want to be there for us the same way we would want to be there for them. And
Yes.
it's hard to remember that. And so, both of us having been through our different struggles now, and I feel like we can talk on this and think back, but hindsight is 2020. If, someone's watching this that feels the way that I did, this is your permission to know that it's okay to let those people in, and you're not a burden, you're not ruining their lives. What'll be more damaging to them is all of the time and opportunity they missed to be there for you. And that's what the people who found out later were most upset about, was, why didn't you tell me sooner? Why were you going through this alone when I could have been there for you? That's where I want to be. So if there's people in your life that don't feel that way, they probably shouldn't be in your life.
Yes, and we often we try to justify ourselves. Sometimes we try to explain to people, I'm going through this, and we try to get it into their head. And sometimes those people that don't want to understand, you're right. We just, it's not out of hatred, it's not out of anger, but it's better if we distance ourselves a little bit from those kind of people, because at the end of the day, they are only making you feel more guilt about your own condition, because they often criticize you. Oh, well, you're not the same as before. Why don't you come out as often? Oh, well, you don't act the same way. Oh, you change. Yes, we change, because this chronic illnesses changes people. Pain changes people, and sometimes for the better. So people need to understand that. And yeah. So now you're professionally, you fought tooth and claw to get to prove yourself, to show that being a woman, being of a mixed race, being in a world of finances, usually from what I've seen in the movies and from what I know, is like a all boys club type of thing. So for you to kind of prove yourself in that environment, and now being diagnosed with a condition that could change your life in any second, how do you mix that? How do you continue working as hard as you were, or you kind of took a step back, or what happened?
I did so at first, when I was first diagnosed, I obviously went out on leave because I was having such bad issues, cognitive issues, brain fog. I was upset, and I had all these, fatigue issues, and also the numbness and the issues with just things that I had mentioned before, numbness in my arms and other types of attacks that were similar to that. And so I did go out on disability when I got my diagnosis. And when I went back to work, it was a very huge struggle, a very difficult adjustment. It was not something I shared with people. I didn't want them to know. They knew I was out, but in my current job and what I do, you want to not ever have anyone believe that you're at a disadvantage, because it can hurt you greatly. You have less opportunities. People want to work with you less because they think, well, she's going to need to go out because she's disabled. She's going to need to do all these things. So you want as few people to know as possible. And when it really started to come out at work was a day I can remember very clearly. We have meetings that we go to where everyone in the office goes and they have to watch a presentation, and we have state licenses and things like that, so we're required to be there. We're required to sign in and have proof that we were there, and so you always stand in line to sign your name in on the sign-in sheet. And I went to sign in and I had forgotten, because when you're at work you forget, and you try to just move past certain symptoms, that my right hand was not working at the time. It was numb, and I couldn't have the dexterity to write my name on the sign-in sheet. When you're sitting at a computer all day and you don't really need to write things down, you forget. And so, completely not even thinking, I grabbed the pen and I was trying to sign in on the signing sheet, and my hand starts trembling and I can't write my name. I can't do it. And this wave of emotion went over me, and I remember turning to the first person who was right behind me waiting to sign in, and I asked him, can you please sign my name for me? And he said, no, of course I can't. I could get in trouble for that. And he didn't know why. He didn't know. And he's like, sign it for yourself. And I couldn't even speak after that. I looked at the assistant who was holding the sheet, and I told her, I cannot sign my name. And I couldn't even get the sentence out, and I burst into tears, and I ran into the hallway, and I just lost it. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to get emotional, but that was the first time that, people at work started to say, oh, something's wrong with her. Something's not right. And having come back from leave and having people wonder and come by, the office all day and say, are you okay? What was wrong? Why were you gone? And I just kept saying, oh, it was a family personal issue. And it's a very, very corporate setting, so they really don't push, but people look at you differently. And so I had to accept, especially from that moment on, people talk about it. Managers come up to you and say, hey, I heard this happened. Are you okay? And you have to learn how to rebuttal, how to collect yourself. And something that my grandmother told me that is my favorite piece of advice I have ever gotten, and I wish that any person struggling with an autoimmune disease could hear this, is never explain yourself, because your friends don't need it and your enemies won't believe you anyway.
Wow. Amen.
Amen. And so
Yeah.
that's how I live my life. That's my professional career. I tell people when I want to tell them things, and I don't when I don't. And I do not explain why they don't get an answer. It is mine. It's my disease. It's my, I'm out here on this video now, but this is a context in which I am choosing to talk about my illness because it's helping people. I'm not choosing to tell a nosy coworker who just wants to know so they can go tell the next person who wants to know. So I'm in control. Yes, I'm sharing it here. Yes, this is a public video, but I'm in control of the way that I'm saying it and how it's distributed. And so that's really what you can do to take back your power, is set your boundaries and set the stage for how you want to portray your illness to others and what you want them to know about it, and never be put on the spot and feel like you owe someone an explanation for anything. And so that's truly, truly how I get through the day with.
Yeah. Your story. Okay, I love all the interviews that I've done. Like I love every single person that I talk to. I always learn from them. But your story, like, look, we already been through so much time, but it doesn't feel like it, because like we're both so into your journey that I'm like, more, tell me more. Like I'm so like, wow, like this is just like, you should write a book, by the way. I don't know if you thought about it before, but you should. What about treatments? What treatment options? As we know, there is no, let's say, there's not an actual official cure for MS. There are treatments that will lessen the symptoms and may even delay the advancement of the lesions. But what did they give you?
So when I first got diagnosed, I actually looked up research studies because I thought, well, I have a disease. I want to help the community. And so I know for a fact there's all these treatments that are available. Are there any studies? What's being done in the science world to further knowledge about MS? And my neurologist said, well, there's a study through the hospital right now. I'm at UCLA Health in Los Angeles, of course. And so they were conducting a Treat MS study, which basically evaluates if it's more effective to treat people more aggressively, no matter what stage their MS is in, from day one, or if they should gradually increase, the severity of their treatment. So I joined that study because I thought treatment is treatment. I want to get great treatment. I want the extra medical attention because there's a team of MS specialists, and your scans, they scan you every 6 months, and I had great insurance, so I could submit that and not have to financially be too burdened by it. So they originally, when I was first diagnosed, she thought, okay, let's put you on Tecfidera, which is a pill that you would take a few times. I think it's 2 or 3 times a day. I never took it, so I'm not quite sure, but it's a couple times a day, 30 minutes before your meals. And that is a big burden. That's a very difficult thing to remember to have to do, especially if you live, or you lead a fast-paced lifestyle and you're on the go and you're meeting with clients and you're at work and you don't always eat your meals 3 times a day. And so having to remember that, I was like, well, that doesn't fit with my lifestyle at all. And she said, okay, well, let's see, because we cannot have you in the study if you've already been on treatment. We have to have someone who's never been treated before. That way we can evaluate, what type of treatment. So that was the reason I held off and did not take Tecfidera, even though that was what they thought at the time might be the best approach for me. And so by random draw, I was selected to be on Ocrevus or Ocrevus. I believe it's pronounced Ocrevus. I saw my first TV commercial for it yesterday and realized I'd been pronouncing it wrong. I think that the ads are targeting me, but okay. So Ocrevus is a twice-a-year infusion. And I heard that and I thought, perfect. Because of all the reasons I just said, that works better for me than, having to give myself injections or take pills. So I just have to go in twice a year and get my infusion treatments. And to me, mentally, that was something that was just so much more appealing to me, not even just for the burden of not having to remember to take a pill every day, but also because I didn't want to have to be reminded every single time I went to eat something that I am sick or that I'm not normal or that, and I hate that word. I hate normal because so many of us have autoimmune disorders that it's pretty freaking normal at this point. Like it really is. Like we are just like everybody else. Everyone has something, whether it's mental, physical, circumstantial, everyone is struggling with something. So I don't like the word normal, but that was something that I thought for my mental health, not having that feeling that I have to say, hey, is it 30 minutes before lunchtime? I have to take these pills. That was huge for me. And so I've been on Ocrevus for almost 2 years now. I've had, I think that was my 4th infusion or my 5th. When you first start out, they separate your first infusion into 2 doses that are a couple weeks apart, just so that your body can handle it, so they can monitor you and know that you're responding all right to it and not allergic and all these things. So that seems to have worked well. I've had the fewest amount of relapses in a span of time than ever. I do have a new lesion that we found in December. What month is it? I don't even know. Okay, it's February? Yes, in December. In December, I found I do have a new lesion. That's my first new lesion since I've been on treatment, but I didn't have some massive attack. So it was more mild. It was just,
increases the intensity of the symptoms. Okay.
Right. So it just increased the ongoing intensity of symptoms that were already there, which is why I wasn't even sure, something, I didn't think I had a new lesion, but I thought, okay, well, let's scan. That's what we do. And we found out, but significantly a huge change for the better since I've been on treatment. And so I encourage people to take that leap and to do it. Everyone has different opinions, but I think the most important thing is to pick the treatment that you feel fits best with your lifestyle, not
Yes.
even necessarily the one with the best reviews or the most patients are on it, the one that you could see yourself doing every day. And for me, that was only Ocrevus.
And we often get that sixth sense inside of us that tell you something is right or something isn't right. So sometimes we have to trust our gut feeling and be like, if you get a good feeling about a type of medication that you feel might be right for you, trust that instinct. If your doctor are telling you yes and and your body's telling you yes, it's probably a good reason to follow. Now, a lot of comorbid conditions come with MS or with anything that is affecting the nervous system. So anxiety, depression, panic attacks. Have you felt anything like that prior to the medication and during the medication treatment or no?
I would say that anxiety, yes, is heightened. I don't know if it's from the treatment or not. I think that, just anxiety in general for a lot of people is heightened. We're in a pandemic. And so I really don't know where that starts and ends. But I can definitely say I do struggle with anxiety. I don't think that I'm depressed. I've been diagnosed as depressed. But again, I didn't think that that was true. And I still don't think that's true.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to take medication for something that I don't believe I should be
Yes.
taking.
Yeah.
And that's just my choice. If you have a doctor you trust and you want to listen to them, that's up to you. But for me, I choose not to be on medication for it. What I do is I started running. I try to do
Nice.
things that make me happy. I started an Instagram page that helps people going through diagnosis, and I've just been communicating with people and trying my best to mitigate them going through the same struggles that I went through, and that helps my anxiety greatly. It's supposed to be a service for other people, but I think I get more out of it, and that's usually how doing the right thing works. You end up getting more out of it as well. So yeah, I don't take medication for anxiety, but I struggle with it every single day.
Now, with MS, as with some other conditions, often some doctors believe that certain foods may trigger reactions or may help reduce symptoms. Have you noticed anything in your diet that might trigger it or that will help any symptoms that you might be feeling?
So I think that that is something that is very much left to everyone else's opinion. I
Mhm.
am of the belief that eating the foods that make you feel good, whether you have a disease or not, will always, always increase your health. Whether it's eating low carb and high fats or high fats, low carbs, I've tried it all. The thing that works best for me is not overeating, doing my exercise, regularly, having a routine, and then just eating wholesome foods. I eat carbs, I eat sugar, I drink wine because it's delicious. I love chocolate. I eat everything. I eat everything. Well, actually, I am a pescatarian. That's just by choice. It's not to do with medical reasons. I just think cows and pigs are so cute. But hey, I get it. Like, they're also delicious. I understand that. But I don't think that that impacts my health directly to my MS. I think that overall, without my MS, it makes me a healthier person, if that makes sense.
It does, and thank you for saying that and clarifying that because a lot of people that are suffering with a condition, they feel guilty because other people that may not be suffering from any conditions tell them, oh, it's because you're eating sugars, or it's because you drink too much coffee, or it's because of this that you're not improving. So a person that is already vulnerable because of their chronic illness, now they feel guilty every time that they want to grab something to eat that they might enjoy the taste, but because everyone else is pointing the finger, then they feel like I'm not gonna eat it. And I agree with you. You only live once. Unfortunately, I don't take my own advice. I'm very extremely strict with my diet because I read a book early on during my diagnosis that said, don't eat this, and that. So I basically only eat grass and water. That's basically it. And I missed a lot of foods. But I appreciate what you said. Is if it makes you happy and you feel that it's right for you, it's probably right for you. Now, where can people find you?
So I have a blog that is where I write about all the things I just spoke about. I talk about my MS journey, and then just other things too, because I'm so much more than just MS. I talk about, my dates with my husband and how we've been dealing with COVID, and I talk about travel and all these things. So it's really everything. And it is at sunnysideup.com. So it's spelled like my name is spelled SUNI and then side up. So sunny side up, like the egg, kind of. And that it really just signifies to me just choosing to live happily, brightly, positive side up, always just look on the bright side, that type of thing. So that's really what that meant to me. So I have a blog, sunnysideup.com, and then my Instagram handle is sunnysideupblog, and that's where you can find me.
I love it, sunny side up. Very nice. What does the future hold for Sunny?
I think a lot more of spreading awareness. That's what makes me the happiest, connecting with people like you and being able to further, like I said before, just articulate, for the people who may not quite be able to yet, all of the things that we're going through, to share resources, to be able to just connect with people, but also contribute to a community where we are all searching for the cure, whether it's to MS, to cancer, to anything that people are struggling with, is just creating a community where there is that positivity and there's support. So I love that. I do love what I do for a living. It's something that I feel strongly about, and I know it's necessary. Is that my sole purpose, passion? No, this is what I know I'm meant to be doing. So whether it's on the side or whether it's in conjunction with it, I'll figure that out. But for right now, I'm just trying to do everything that I can for as long as I can.
Awesome. And my last question to you is, the channel is called Find Your Chappiness, so find your happiness. Mm-hmm. How does Suni find her happiness?
Right now, I find it with relationships and staying close to the people who mean the world to me. We are all locked in close quarters. I have started this new tradition of dating my husband at home. So we quite literally every Thursday night is YouTube night, and we pick a different place and we YouTube dishes and music and culture of this place. And then on Friday or Saturday, we say, okay, we're going to watch these videos. And, last time we did Argentina and we made empanadas. And so we felt like we traveled to Argentina. We put on Spotify and made an Argentinian, playlist and just had a great time. And sometimes we even decorate. So doing things like that, taking ourselves out of just the current moment and all the stress of everything going on in the world, and just remembering there's so much to do. There's so many places to go. That's our passion. And then also anything that I can do to help the pit bull community, which I know means a lot to you as well. We have a rescue pit bull named Addie. And so helping to raise awareness and just supporting people who are fostering and doing these programs and donating and seeing how we can get involved, that's something that's huge to us as well.
It's very nice to see someone that through her own struggles is always open-minded and kind-hearted to try and help others, raise awareness. And I honestly do believe that we are stronger together. And the world can be a very harsh place if people want it to be, but it can be a lovely place if we also want it to be. And we can make the change within ourselves, and we can make little changes by appreciating others, building those relationships, like you say, appreciating the little things like dating at home, making Argentinian empanadas together. Like, that's lovely. So we should all take that into consideration, and you know what, just spread more love than hatred. So thank you for this. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're a delight. Like, it's been so amazing talking to you, and no joke when I say you could take over the world if you wanted to. If you ever run for politician, hands down, you got my vote. Like, honestly, you're strong, you're sophisticated, you're very confident in the way how you speak, you're well spoken, you're well educated. So it's amazing to see someone that doesn't get defined by her condition, but instead kicks its ass. Like, you kudos on you. Like, amazing. And your husband for being so supportive and so understanding. So you guys, yeah, I admire you both. So it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. It means the world to me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, have a wonderful afternoon, Enjoy the nice weather while I'm here. I think I'm at minus 18 Celsius. So
I don't even know what the metric system, what that means. We do Fahrenheit here, but
it's
that sounds
cold.
cold.
Oh, it is. It is. So enjoy the nice weather and hopefully we chat again soon.
Always, always please keep in touch. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.